What's up developers, it's Dari here and welcome back to a new mini course where I'm going to have a deep dive into collection methods in Laravel. In this video, we will talk about the power of collections, we will walk through setting up a new Laravel project, we will set up a database connection, and we will create a migration model and factory to play around with our collections. Now, what are collections? Collections are an extremely powerful and versatile data structure that are widely used in programming. At their core, collections are simply an array, but they offer so much more in terms of features and flexibility that they have become a cornerstone of modern programming. Over the last couple of years, a lot of people ask me whether they should use collections over arrays. And I always responded saying that collections are basically arrays, but they are on a lot of steroids. One of the key advantages of collections is that they allow you to group related objects together in a logical and easy to use way. Whether you're working with simple strings or complex custom objects, collections can help you to organize and manipulate your data with ease. Welcome to my Udemy course where we'll explore the ins and outs of Laravel's query builder, Eloquent ORM, and relationships. We will start off by diving into migrations, seeders, and factories to get a good understanding of databases. Then we will dive into the query builder, where we will learn how to craft complex SQL queries using Laravel's elegant syntax. From there on, we will move on to Eloquent, Laravel's powerful ORM, which allows us to interact with our database using intuitive object-oriented syntax. Since we're on the topic of Eloquent, we will also explore relationships in Laravel, which allows us to define how our database tables are related to another, making it easy to retrieve and manipulate data across multiple tables. From simple relationships such as the one-to-one relationship, all the way to polymorphic relationships. By the end of this course, you will have a deep understanding of migrations, factories, seeders, the query builder, Eloquent ORM, and relationships, where you will be able to build a complex web application with ease. I'm looking forward to see you in this course. Now let's get started. I've already talked enough. Let's set up a new Laravel project, which we need to do through the command line interface, where we need to perform the composer, create-project, --prefer dist, Laravel /Laravel, and let's name it Laravel-collections. I'm going to cut out the part where I'm going to open my project in PHP Storm, and I'm also going to use Tinkerwell in this course. So pause the video, set everything up, and I'll see you back once you're done. Now, Tinkerwell is a PHP REPL tool that allows developers to interact, test, and debug their code. It is useful for testing purposes because it allows developers to quickly test code snippets and see the results in real time, without having to actually write a full script or run the entire application. Quick note, this video is not sponsored by Tinkerwell. I recently started using their product, and when building my database and Eloquent course, I found out how Tinkerwell makes the life of a developer easier, and especially for a tutor explaining the code. So the first thing that we need to do is to navigate to PHP Storm, where we need to open our .env file because we need to change up our database credentials. I'm gonna set my password first to Dari1234. My username is root. My database name will be Laravel_collections. The port is alright, the host is alright, and the connection as well. We obviously need to create the database. So let's navigate to the CLI and let's perform the MySQL, where I'm going to perform the create database, and let's name it Laravel_collections. Let's perform an exit right here to exit MySQL. Since we're going to interact with the database, I quickly want to create a new model and migration to have some test data inside my database. We could use a user model and migration, but the downside of using it is that it does not have that many different data types. And if we create a new migration ourselves, we could use all the different data types that we could perform operations on. So let's change directories into our project by saying cd Laravel-collections. And right here, we're going to perform the PHP artisan make me a new model. Let's name it article. We're going to add a -m flag to create the migration, but we're also going to add the -f flag to generate a factory. Once we hit enter, you'll see that 3 files have been created. So we're going to start off with the migration. So let's navigate back to PHP Storm. We don't need our .env file anymore, so let's close it off. Open the database directory, migrations, and we need to open the latest migration that we have created. Now if I scroll down right here, you'll find the schema where we can create our articles table. Now I want to keep my primary key as the first column, So in between the primary key and the timestamps, we're going to create a foreign key by saying table object, foreign ID. The foreign ID column name will be user underscore ID. We're going to chain the constraint method to it because it constrains the table users. And we're going to add the cascade on delete method. Then I need another column, so let's use our table object again. The data type will be a string, so basically a varchar. The column name will be title, and the title needs to be unique. Then we have our description, so let's say table, which will be a long text of description. Let's add another column, which will be a text data type. And the column name will be an excerpt, and the excerpt can be nullable. Now I want two more columns, one boolean and an integer. So let's add a table boolean, which has a column name of is underscore published, and it has a default value of false. Then I have a table integer, which has a column name of minutes to read, which can also be nullable. Before we navigate to our article model, let's quickly open our users table because I want to add an additional column which will define the user rule. This will not be the best practice when it comes to adding rules to applications, but it is just the simplest way of adding it and playing around with our collections. So right under our email verified at, we're going to add a table string. The column name will be role. And we're going to chain a default of, let's say, user. Now let's navigate up. Let's open our app directory, models, and let's open the article model. Because one thing that I always forget is defining the protected fillable property, which we need to set equal to an array. And inside our fillable property, we need to add attribute names that are mass assignable. This means that you can create or update models using the create or update methods. Only the attributes listed in the fillable property will be allowed for mass assignment. All other attributes will be guarded and cannot be mass assigned. And this is basically a security feature that helps protect against mass assignment vulnerabilities. So let's add our user underscore ID. Let's say the title. Let's add the slug. We're going to add the description. We're going to add the excerpt. We're going to add the is underscore published. And we're going to add the minutes to read. So let's also open the user model and let's scroll down, and inside the fillable property, let's add the rule as well. The last thing that I would like to set up is my article factory. In Laravel, we use factories to quickly generate dummy data for testing and seeding our databases. It basically allows us to define a set of attributes for a model and generate multiple instances of that model with randomized data, which is pretty helpful for testing and development purposes, as it allows us to create a large amount of data and test various scenarios without having to manually create each record. And since we're not going to work with an actual working application, but simply going to play around with queries, we could use dummy data. So let's navigate to our factory directory, open it, and open the article factory, where we have our definition method, where we need to define the default attributes for a model. So usually what I do is starting off by defining the keys first. So let's say user underscore ID is equal to an empty string. We have the title. We have the excerpt. We have the description. We have the is underscore published. And we have the minutes to read. Now let's define the values right now. For our user ID, we're going to use our user model, where we're going to access the all method, but we're going to chain the random method to it, which will grab a random user where we only need to have the ID. Then we have the title, which comes from the fake method. The title needs to be unique, and it needs to be a sentence. Then we have the excerpt, which also comes from the fake method. We're going to chain the paragraphs method to it, where we need to pass in two arguments, the length, which needs to be 2 sentences, and we have true, which says that it needs to be as text. Now the same line needs to be defined for the description, so let's do that. But the description will be 8 lines and it's true as well. Then we have our is underscore published column, which is a boolean, so let's use the fake method and chain the boolean method to it. And finally, we have the fake method, which will be a random number, which will be between 1 and 10. Alright, now let's navigate to our user factory for a moment, because we do need to add an additional key value pair right here as well. So let's go right below our email verified at. Now let's say that the role of a user is coming from the fake method. It's a random element where we're going to pass in an array with 3 items. We have a user, we have an admin, and we have a super_admin. We're ready to perform a couple commands in the CLI. So let's navigate back to iTerm, and let's first run the PHP artisan migrate command to run all migrations that we have inside our project. Alright, that was successful. Secondly, we need to run PHP artisan tinker, because we need to generate dummy data for both the user model and the article model. So inside our article factory, we set that the user ID column should have a value from the user model. So we first need to create users before we could create articles. So let's say user, factory, chain create. In the factory method, we need to pass in an integer of the amount of users that we want to create. So let's say 50. As you could see, it has created 50 new rows because the last ID is 50. Then we need to perform the same command to create articles. So let's say article model, factory, create. Now let's pass in 100 articles. In case you're being prompted with a model not found exception right here, your model namespace is most likely not being correctly autoloaded. You could either run exit and run the composer dump-autoload command to reload the autoloader, or you could simply hit the arrow up and add the model namespace in front of the article model. And usually I just find this a little bit easier. So let's say app, /models, /. Once we perform our request, you'll see that we have created 100 new rows. From now on, I want to use Tinkerwell to play around with collections. Using Tinkerwell allows me to show you what the query speed is, and it also shows what happens behind the scenes. You don't need to have Tinkerwell to play with collections. You could continue on in the same exact way as we have been doing up until this point. Tinkerwell also does not have its own syntax. I have to make that clear. It literally uses Laravel. So whatever I'm doing, you can do it too. So I'm going to quickly set up the routing for developers that are going to follow this course but don't have Tinkerwell. So let's perform an exit right here, and let's perform a clear as well. And right here, we need to create a new controller through the PHP artisan make me a new controller, and we're going to name it article controller. Then we need to define the route. So let's navigate back to PHP store. Let's open the routes directory web.php file. Where right under our welcome route, we're going to use the route method, and it's going to be a get request. The endpoint will be /articles. The controller will be article controller, class, comma, second value of index, which will be the index method inside our articles controller, which we basically don't have. So let's navigate up, open the HTTP directory, controllers and article controller, where we're going to define a public function index. So whatever I'm going to do inside Tinkerwell, you could simply replicate by defining a variable, setting it equal to a query, and then add a dump die to it. We're going to cover methods to calculate the average of a collection, the count, the minimum, the maximum number, the median, the sum, and we're going to retrieve a random number from a list. Before we continue on with this course, I want to show you 2 different ways on how you could use most of the methods we will be using in this course. In Laravel, we could use a static method that can be called on a model class, which will look like this. We're going to call our article model, where we can add a colon, whereNull method, and chain the count method to it. But the same collection method of whereNull can also be called on an instance of the query builder to add a where clause to filter the records based on the value of a specific column that is null. Both methods can be used to achieve the same result, but they are called in different ways. And this is how it looks. Let's say that we have an article variable which has a value of a collection, where we can chain the whereNull method to it. But throughout this course, we will be playing around with both methods, but I just wanted to make sure that we're both on the same path. The first method that I want to cover is the count method, which returns the total number of records for a given model. Now let's say that we want to see how many articles we have defined inside our application, where we could simply make use of our article model, where we're going to use the count method, where you will see that it has returned a total of 100 records. This is quite simple, but keep in mind that we could also use the count method in combination with the where method, or any other method. The where method is used to retrieve records that match a specific condition. And since our article model has a is_published attribute, we could basically say, well, get me the article model, chain the where method to it. Now let's say that we want to get the values for the is_published column is equal to true. This doesn't count anything because right after the where method, we could chain the count method. Now let me make the sidebar a little bit smaller. Alright, so what we have done right here is called method chaining. And method chaining in Laravel is a technique that allows you to call multiple methods on an object in a single statement. This is often used in Eloquent queries, where you could chain methods to build complex queries. Once we perform our request, you will see that it has returned 44 articles where the is_published column has been set equal to true. Now let's move on to the second method, which will be the countBy method. The countBy method is used to group the records by a given column and it returns the count for each group. So let's say that you want to know how many articles you have for each author. Quick note, the countBy method only works with columns that contain integer values because it is not possible to group records by non-numeric values. If you try to use countBy with a non-integer column, you will receive a type error exception. So, we need to make sure that we first pluck a column. So let's say article, and we're going to pluck the user ID column, where then right after the pluck method, we can chain the countBy method. Once we perform our request, you will see that it returns an associative array where the keys are the author IDs and the values are the corresponding article counts. The next method is the max method, and the max method returns the maximum value of a given column. We obviously know the maximum value of the user ID column, since we have that on our screen right now, which is 50. So let's say that we want to retrieve the maximum value from our article model, which has the longest read of posts. So let's say article, max, and it needs to max the minutes to read column, which will return the highest minutes to read among all articles in your database, which is equal to 9. So let's see how the max method can be useful in a bit more complex query in combination with the whereBetween method. So let's say article, whereBetween, the user ID needs to be equal to comma, an array between a value of 20 and 30, where we could then chain the max method to it, where we need to pass in a column name of minutes to read. This query will return the highest minutes to read amongst the values of our articles where the user ID is between 20 and 30. Next to the maximum number, we also have the minimum number, which you can grab through the min method. The min method simply returns the minimum value of a given column. So what we could do right here is basically say, well, article, min, and the minimum value is the minutes to read column. Well, basically of the minutes to read column, excuse me. The next method is the median method, which is used to retrieve the middle value of a set of numbers. When a set of numbers is ordered from smallest to largest, or the other way around, the median is the value that is exactly in the middle. You might wonder when calculating the median is useful, and think about a scenario where you need to analyze salaries, test scores, or other numerical data sets. So let's say that we're going to use our article model again. We're going to pluck a specific column, which will be the minutes to read, and we're going to then chain the median method to it. And this will return the median number of the minutes to read column among all the articles in your database. The next method is the mode method. Retrieving the mode can be very useful when you want to find out the most frequent occurring value in a data set. So let's say that inside our article model, we're going to once again pluck the user ID because I want to see which user created the most articles. So let's chain the mode method to it, which will return an array with user IDs, so it could also be multiple. Now we could even make it a little bit more complex by finding the most common user ID among all articles that are published. So let's say article, where the is_published column is equal to true, And let's chain the pluck method to it because we're going to pluck the user ID. And then we're going to chain the mode methods. And let me actually outline the chained methods on the line below. Once we perform our request, you'll see that it's still the user where the user ID is equal to 48. We could also retrieve a random record from a given model using the inRandomOrder methods. And we have already done this when defining our article factory, but let's do it again. So let's say that we have our article model. Let's use the inRandomOrder method. If we perform the request right now, you'll see that we don't retrieve anything because we do need to chain the first method to get the first value. Once we perform it again, you will see that we have retrieved an article where the ID is equal to 52. And if we keep performing our request, you will see that it keeps changing up the row that we're retrieving. You could also retrieve a specific value where you need to replace the first method with the value method. But with the value method, you need to pass in the column name that you want to retrieve. So let's say that we only want to retrieve the ID, which will retrieve the ID value. Finally, we have the sum method, which returns the total number of a given column. So let's say that we want to retrieve the total minutes to read of all articles. So let's say article, colon, sum, and we're going to sum the minutes to read column. Once we perform our request, it will return back 511, meaning that if a user wants to read all articles inside our database, it will take him 511 minutes. One of the most common methods when it comes to collections is the where method. And the where method filters the collection based on a given key value pair. If you have used MySQL before, which I actually expect you to have, you might think that the where method is similar to the where clause in MySQL. It partly is, but it's not exactly the same. The where method in collections is used to filter a collection based on a specific key value pair or a closure, where the where clause in MySQL is used to filter data from a database table based on a specific condition. The where method is executed on a collection object in memory, while the where clause is executed by the MySQL server. So there are some differences between both. So I have created a simple collection, which you can see on my screen right now, where I have stored two keys of name and age with their respective values. Now let's say that we want to retrieve an item where the age is equal to 22. So let's use our collection variable, where we could chain the where method to it. The where method takes two arguments. The first argument is the key of the item in the collection you want to filter by, which in our case will be age. And the second argument is the value that you want to filter by, which in our case will be 22. Now quick note, the default operator of the where method in Laravel is equal to. Whenever you want to use a different data type, you need to pass in a second argument of the operator that you want to use. So we can set it equal to greater than, not equal to, less than, and so on. But since we want to check for a specific match, we can simply remove our second argument. Once we perform our request, you will see that the where method has returned a new collection that contains the items that have passed the given truth test, which is a user with the name of Mike, where the age is equal to 22. So let's add an argument in between both, where we need to have the age that's higher than 22. Once we perform our request, you'll see that it has returned 3 users. Now next to using it on a collection we have defined ourselves, we could also use the where method on our article model. Let's give it a try. Let's say article, where. Right here, we're going to check whether the is_published column is equal to true. Once we perform our request, you will see that it returns nothing. And this is happening because we do need to chain the get method at the end of the query to retrieve the results of a query. Without get, the query will not actually be executed and no results will be found. Once we perform our request right now, you will see that it has retrieved all articles that are published. Now a pretty interesting feature that Laravel has to offer is that you could chain multiple where methods, where multiple filters will be added based on key value pairs. So let's method chain on the line below, where we're going to add a second where method, where the minutes to read needs to be equal to 9. Once we perform our request, you'll see that it has retrieved articles, but way less than before because we have added a second where condition. Well, let me actually add enters right here. All right. Finally, instead of passing in key value pairs inside the where method, you could also pass in a callback function. In the callback function, we can write any logic that we want. Now we're going to pass in a variable of query inside our callback function, which will be used to filter the article model. In our callback function, we can return the query, where we could chain the where method. And you might wonder right here, why do we need to use the where method again? Well, the callback function has access to the entire item that's being filtered, whereas the where method is limited to filtering based on key value pairs. This allows for more advanced filtering criteria to be applied to the collection or query. So what we could do right here is basically say, well, get me the post where the is_published column is equal to true. We finally need to chain the get method to it. Let me actually make it a little bit smaller again. All right. Once we perform our request, you'll see that we have retrieved all articles that are published. The next method that I want to cover is the whereStrict method, which uses a strict comparison operator. A strict comparison is a comparison between two values that checks for both the value and the type of the values being compared. So let's see how it works with the collection we have used in the previous example. Let's change the first name inside our collection to lowercase Dari. Then we could use our collection variable and chain the whereStrict method to it. We need to add two arguments. First, we need to pass in the key, which will be name. And secondly, we need to pass in the value we want to search for, which will be capital Dari. In the output, you'll see that it has retrieved one user where the name is equal to Dari with a capital D. Now in PHP, the triple equal operator is used for strict comparisons, while the double operator is used for loosely comparisons. When using the whereStrict method in Laravel collections, a strict comparison operator is used to filter the collection. This means that only items with an exact match of the given key value pair will be included in the filtered records. Finally, we have the whereBetween method, which is used to filter a collection based on a range of values. And we're going to use it on our article model this time. So let's say whereBetween. It takes two arguments. The first argument is the key of the item of the collection that you want to filter by. So let's say the minutes to read column, where the second argument is an array that contains two values, the minimum value and the maximum value. So let's say 5 and 9. Now finally, let's not forget to chain the get method to it. All right. Now this command right here will retrieve all articles where the minutes to read column has a value between 5 and 9. Now quick note, you could also use the whereBetween and where method together. So let's say that we want to chain the where method to it as well. But we're going to change the search on the whereBetween method to the created_add column, because we're going to retrieve all articles that are published between January 1st, 2023 and June 30, 2023. And that have at least 5 minutes to read. So we need to replace the integers inside our array. Let's hit enter right here. Now let's say that the date needs to be 2023, 0101, where it has a second argument of 2023, 06, so June and 30. And then we could define the where method. So let's say where the minutes to read is greater than, let's say, 5. So once we perform our request, you'll see that it has retrieved all articles that have been published between January 1st, 2023 and June 30, 2023, and that have at least a minimum of 5 minutes to read. Now the advantage of using the whereBetween method is that it allows you to easily filter a collection based on a range of values. It can be useful in situations where you need to retrieve items that fall within a certain range. So let's redefine the query that we have without the whereBetween method. So it will look like this. So let's say article where get. So the first where clause will be the created_at needs to be greater than or equal to 2023's January the 1st. Then we can chain another where method to it, where the created_at column needs to be less than or equal to 2023 0630. Then we need to add another where method where the minutes to read is greater than 5. And in situations like these, I simply prefer to use the whereBetween method because it will eliminate one where method. So let's start off with a whereIn method, which allows you to filter a collection based on multiple values. It is often used when you have an array of values and you want to find all the records in a collection that match one or more of those values. To demonstrate how the whereIn method works, let's take a look at a scenario. Let's use our user model this time. Now let's find out all the users that have a certain rule. Let's first define an array named rules. Now let's pass in two values right here. Let's say admin and super_admin. Then right outside of our array, we can use our user model and then use the whereIn method and chain the get method. The whereIn method accepts two required arguments. The first argument is a column that you want to filter on, which in our case will be rule, while the second argument is an array of values you want to filter by. So let's pass in our rules array. Quick summary of our example right here. We are using the whereIn method to find all the users that have a rule of admin or super_admin. Once we perform our request, you will see that it has retrieved a lot of users where their role is either an admin or superadmin. This output isn't very clear, so let's replace the get method with the count method that we have used in the second episode, and let's perform it, where you will see that out of the 50 users that we have created, 36 of them have a role of either admin or superadmin. Now many developers would use the where method in this case, but using the whereIn method is so much more powerful because it allows you to find records that match each value in an array. You can use whereIn to find all the records in one query. I also think that the whereIn method makes your code more readable and maintainable by using the expressive syntax of Laravel's collection to write code that is easy to understand and to modify. Next to the whereIn method, Laravel offers the whereNotIn method, which is useful when you want to exclude specific values from your query. Using the whereNotIn method has the same advantages as the whereIn method, because it makes your code more readable and maintainable. It is often used when you have an array of values and you want to find all the records in a collection that do not match any of those values. Let's use our user model again, and let's use the whereNotIn method, and let's chain the get method to it. Just like the whereIn method, it accepts two arguments. The first argument is the column you want to filter on, which in our case will be rule again. While the second argument is an array of values that you want to exclude. So let's say that instead of including the admin and super_admin rule, we're going to exclude them now. Once again, if we perform a request, we will retrieve quite some rows. So if we replace the get method with the count method, you'll see that we have retrieved 14 rows, which is correct because the whereIn method retrieved 36 rows, and if we add both of them, it's a total of 50 users. Now, just like any other method in Laravel, you can chain as many methods as you want. So let's say that we want to chain the where method right here, and that we only want to retrieve users where the email verified at is equal to today, which is 2023-04-13. In the output, you will see that it has returned 0, and that's because the email verified at column of the users have all not been set. But the point is that you can use the whereNotIn and the whereIn method with any other method that you want. Sometimes, when working with data, you may encounter situations where you need to filter out records where a specific column has a null value. This is where the whereNull method comes into play. In Laravel, the whereNull method is used to filter the collection based on the values of a specific column that is null. It is a method that is commonly used in conjunction with the Eloquent model. And one of the reasons why the whereNull method is so powerful is that it allows you to filter through large collections of data pretty quickly and easily. And besides, it's also a very great way to retrieve all the records from a database table that have a null value in a specific column. When defining our migration, we set that the excerpt column could be nullable. But inside our article factory, we also set that the fake method should add a value to it. So let's update a couple rows inside our database before we continue on. So let's define our article model, and let's use the where method first, where we're gonna find articles where the minutes to read are greater than, let's say, 8. Then we're gonna chain the update method to it because we're going to update all those rows and we're going to set the excerpt equal to null. Once we perform our request, you'll see that it has updated 14 articles. So let's get rid of a query because we don't need it anymore. And let's see how the whereNull method works. So let's define our article model again, and let's use the whereNull method, and we need to chain the get method to it. The whereNull method requires one argument, which is the name of the column you want to filter. We just updated a couple records inside our database where we set the excerpt equal to null. So let's pass in a string of excerpt right here. Now this code will return all the articles from the articles table that have a null value in the excerpt column. To double check that, let's replace the get method with the count method, where you will see that it has retrieved records, which the update method also returned back. So this is correct. Now let's quickly see how this works on an instance method that we can call. So let's define a new variable named collection, and let's set it equal to the collect method. Pass in an array, another array where we have a key of name and a value of desk. And right outside of it, we're going to add a comma and add another array where the key is name, but the value is equal to null. Then right under our article whereNull query, we could basically use our collection variable and chain the whereNull method to it, where we need to pass in a key of, let's say, name. Once we perform our request, where you will see that it has returned a new collection where the name is equal to null. Now next to the whereNull method, Laravel offers the complete opposite, which is the whereNotNull method. And let me scroll down a little bit. Alright. And the whereNull method is used to filter the collection based on the values of a specific column that is not null. It is useful when you need to retrieve records from a database table that have a non-null value in a specified column. We could technically use the same exact use case that we have on our screen. So let's say that we want to filter the collection that we just defined and only show the items where the name has been set. To achieve that, we can use our collection variable, chain the whereNotNull method to it, pass in a key of name. Now this code right here has returned all the items from the collections variable that have a non-null value in the name, which is in our case desk. Now the whereNotNull method can also be used as a static method that we can call on a model class. So let's say article, whereNotNull, and let's get the values. Now let's say that we only want to retrieve rows where the excerpt is not null. Once we perform our request, you'll see a complete list. So let's replace get with count, where you'll see a total of 86 rows. Now let's say that you only want to retrieve articles that were published in 2021, or all articles published on a specific day of the week. In these type of scenarios, you could use these methods. Let's first retrieve all articles that we have. And let's copy one value of the created_at column. Let's see where it is. Right here. And let's paste it as a comment right below our query. Now let's start with the whereDate method. The whereDate method is useful when you want to filter your database query results based on a specific date. Let's replace the all method with the whereDate method, and let's chain the get method to it as well. It accepts two required arguments, where the first one is the name of the column that contains the date you want to filter it by, which is created_at, while the second argument is the actual date you want to filter on. So let's say 2023-04-13. Behind the scenes, this query will generate a SQL query that filters the results based on a date portion of a datetime column. So if the date portion matches, the row will be included in the result set. Let's see how the query looks behind the scenes. Well, let's perform the request, and this might be too small for you, so let me copy it and add it as a comment right here, where you will see that it performs a simple select statement, where it will select all fields from the article table, where it will extract the date part from the time using the date function, where it passes in the created_at column, where the date needs to be equal to the 13th of April. Quick note, you could also add other operators as a second argument, so we could basically say, well, one moment, it needs to be less than, greater than, less than or equal to, or greater than or equal to. But in our case, we're just going to get rid of it. Now let's delete the comment as well, because the second method that I want to cover is the whereDay method. This method is perfect for when you want to filter your database query results based on a specific day of the month. It is powerful because it allows you to retrieve all articles published on a certain day, regardless of the year and month. Now let me repeat myself, regardless of the year and month. So let's perform our query. Let's say article : whereDay. Now let's chain the get method. The whereDay method takes two arguments. The first argument is the name of the column that contains the date you want to filter by, which in our case will be created_at again. While the second argument is the specified day of the month you want to filter on. Not the day in a full string, but the integer number of the day of the month. So let's say 13. Now once we perform our request, you'll see that it obviously returns a full list of articles. So let's replace the get method with the count method, where you will see that it has retrieved 100 rows. And that's correct because we created 100 rows using our factory class, all on the same date. Now behind the scenes, this command will generate a SQL query that filters the results based on the day portion of the datetime column. Once we perform our request, you'll see that the biggest difference between both queries is that the second query uses the day function rather than the date function. The next method on the list is the whereMonth method. It is powerful because it allows you to retrieve all articles published in a month regardless of the year. And let me repeat myself one more time, is regardless of the year. So let's perform our query. Let's say, well, let me add a couple enters right here. Let's say article whereMonth get. It accepts the same arguments, so the name of the column that contains the datetime value you want to filter by, which is again created_at, and it accepts an integer value of the month you want to filter articles on. So let's say 11. Once we perform our request right now, you will see that we receive an empty collection, which is correct because all of our articles have been created in the month of April. So if we change our second argument to 4 and perform our request, you'll see that we have retrieved all the articles again. Now you probably wonder whenever you should use the whereMonth method. This can be useful for a blog where you have a lot of deals in the month of November. So think about the Black Friday deals, Cyber Monday deals, and so on. And you want to retrieve all deals of the last years. The next method is the whereYear method, which is also very powerful because it allows you to retrieve all articles published in a certain year, regardless of the month and day. So let's say that you have a blog and you want to create a feature that shows all blog posts published in a certain year. This is where it can be very useful. So once again, let's define our article model and use the whereYear method. Just like the other methods that we covered, it accepts two arguments. The first argument is the column that contains the datetime value that you want to filter by, which is created_at, and an integer value that you want to filter articles on. So let's say 2023. And let's actually replace the get method with the count method. Once we perform our request, you'll see that we retrieved 100 rows. Finally, we have the wheretime method. And the wheretime method is useful when you want to filter your database query results based on a specific time. So let's say that you want to retrieve all articles that were published between 9 AM and 5 PM. So let's make use of our article model. Use the wheretime method. Now let's say count. It accepts once again two arguments, where the first one is the column, so created_at. While the second argument is the specific time you want to filter on, which should be in format of HH of hours, colon, for the month, colon, SS for the seconds, in a string. So let's say 9 AM. And what we need to do right here is actually add a operator in between. So let's say it needs to be greater than or equal to. And then we're going to chain one more method to it, which is the wheretime method again, where the created_at needs to be less than or equal to, let's say 1700. And I forgot a comma right here. Once we perform our request, you'll see that we have retrieved 0 articles. For the filter method in Laravel, which is a very useful method when you want to manipulate collections of data in a more efficient and elegant way. Let's first define a new variable named collection and let's set it equal to the collect methods. We're going to pass in an array right here with 4 integer values. So let's say 1, 2, 3, and 4. Let's use our collection variable and let's chain the filter method to it. Once we perform our request, you'll see that it pretty much printed out a collection of our 4 items. Nothing special, because it has nothing to filter out. A pretty interesting fact about the filter method is that it removes empty values by default, and that's because they are considered falsely in PHP. So what empty methods do we have? Let's define them inside our collection. We have an empty string, we have null, we have false, we have 0, and we have an empty array. Once we perform our request again, you will see that all elements that are empty are evaluated to false and have been excluded from the filter method. You can also once again see that besides removing empty elements, nothing special has happened. And that's because the filter method does not actually perform any filtering until a closure function is passed in as an argument. To do that, we need to basically say, well, function, parentheses, curly braces, and hit enter. So we also need to pass in an argument in the closure, right here, which will represent each element of the collection. So let's pass in value. Now this is obviously required, because the function needs to indicate whether or not each element of the collection should be included in the filtered list. The closure function returns true or false, depending on whether the element should be included in the filtered collection. So inside the filter method, we need to return something. And that something will be a value that is greater than 2. Once we perform our request, you will see that it has returned a new collection with key value pairs, where the keys are the collection keys and the values are the collection values. But one thing that I'm noticing right here is that it has added the empty array. And this is happening because it's not an empty value like an empty string, null, false, or 0. Therefore, it evaluates to true when compared to 2 and is not filtered out. Now, like I've just said, it adds keys as well right here, which are equal to the keys that you have in your default collection. But this also means that we could even access the keys. And this can be done by passing in a second argument inside the closure function of key. Then inside our return statement, we can add a double ampersand and say, well, the key needs to be less than 7 as well. Once we perform our request, you will see that it has removed our array because the key of our array was equal to 8. So you might wonder what the biggest difference is between the filter and the where method, because the functionality we added right here could also be performed with the where method. The filter method returns a new collection with only the elements that pass a given truth test, while the where method filters the collection by a given key value pair. In other words, the filter method is more flexible and can be used to filter a collection based on any condition, while the where method is more specific and is used to filter by a specific key value pair. Now let's remove what we have done right here and let's have a look at a more advanced example. Let's say that we have a new variable named articles and we're going to use our article model, the where method, and we're going to get the count. And what we're going to do inside our where method is basically retrieving all articles that are published. So let's say is_published is equal to true. Now once we perform our request, it simply returns 44 rows. So this works fine, so let's replace the count method with the get method. And since Eloquent returns a collection, I want to use my articles variable, and I want to chain the filter method to it. So let's pass in a closure function, so function parentheses curly braces. We're going to add an argument of article. Then inside our filter function, we're going to return the article where the minutes to read is greater than 8. Once we perform our request, you'll see that we have retrieved a collection where the minutes to read is greater than 8. So like I've said before, the filter method is very useful when you need to extract a subset of elements from a collection that meets a specific criteria. One important thing to note is that the reject method is the inverse of the filter method. While filter returns a new collection with only the elements that pass the given truth test, reject does the opposite and returns a new collection with only the element that fails the given truth test. This makes it a powerful tool for filtering out unwanted data from your collection. I'm going to perform the reject method with the same collection that we have inside the previous episode, where we have used a simple variable named collection, which has been set equal to a couple integers and falsely values. Now let's use our collection variable, and let's chain the reject method to it. Once we perform our request, you will see that all falsely values have been inserted into a new collection and all the integer values from a collection have been removed. The reject method also accepts one argument, which is the closure function. So let's say function parentheses curly braces, which will determine the truth test for each element inside the collection. Now the closure function takes two arguments, the value of the element, which we will set equal to variable value, while the second argument is its key. So let's set it equal to variable key. Then inside our closure function, we can use the value and key arguments to determine the truth test for each element in the collection. So let's say that we're going to return the empty method, which is a built-in PHP function that determines whether a variable is empty or not, and we're going to pass in the value. Once we perform our request, you will see that we have filtered out all the falsely values and it has added the values that are not empty. And if we replace the reject method with the filter method, you will see that it's the inverse. So it has filtered out all the integer values and it has only added the falsely values. Now let's use the reject method with our article model. Let's first retrieve all articles. So let's say article : all. Quick note, this isn't the best working example because it isn't best practice to retrieve all articles and then filter it. But it is the best possible way to show you how this works with database data, rather than just a simple collection with integer values. So let's say that we want to use our articles variable and we want to chain the reject method to it. We're going to pass in a closure function where we're going to add an article argument, where we're going to reject all articles where the excerpt has not been set. So let's say return empty article excerpt. Once we perform our request, and we'll scroll to the top, you will see that it has retrieved a new collection with only articles that have a non-empty excerpt. It basically removes any element that does not pass the truth test, which in our case is checking if the excerpt field of the article is empty or not. Now, if you have been watching this course, and you probably have, obviously, you might have noticed that we could also use something like article whereNotNull get, and the excerpt cannot be null. Which is correct, but there is a slight difference right here. Both methods will return a collection of articles that have non-empty excerpts. But the reject method can be more flexible since it allows you to pass in a custom callback function to determine the truth test for each element in the collection. Obviously, the check that we're performing right now can be used for the whereNotNull method. But let's say that instead of the empty method, we want to make sure that the article excerpt is numeric, for example, which will be a little bit more difficult with the whereNotNull method or any other method because there isn't a method for it. And this is where the real power of the reject method comes in clutch. We're going to start off with the contains method, which does exactly what the name of the method says. It literally checks whether a value exists inside the collection. So we have our collection defined, which we're going to use because we're going to chain the contains method to it. The contains method takes one argument, which is the value you want to check for in the collection. So let's pass in 3. Once we perform our request, you will see that it returns back with true, meaning that a value does exist. If it doesn't exist, it will return false. In our case, an integer of 3 does exist, so let's change the value to 30. Once we perform our request, you will see that it has returned back with false, meaning that the value does not exist inside the array. As simple as that. The second method that I want to cover is the accept method, which is used to remove one of the items from a collection. Now, before we could use it properly, let's actually define a collection with key value pairs. So let's set our collection variable equal to the collect method. Let's pass in an array with 3 key value pairs. The first one is name, which will be equal to Kevin De Bruyne. Then we have the age, which will be set equal to 31. And we have the club, which is equal to Manchester City. So whenever you want to use the accept method, you first need to use your collection variable and chain the accept method to it. The accept method takes one or more arguments, where one is required and all the other ones are optional, which can be as many as you want that will represent the keys of the items you want to remove from the collection. So let's say that we love the name of Kevin De Bruyne, we also love the club, but let's get rid of the age. Now what this will do is simply filtering through the collection, it will try to find a match where the key is age, and it will create a new collection with the specified items removed. The original collection is not modified. Well, to actually create a new collection, we need to set the accept method equal to a variable. So let's say filtered. Right now, we will create a new collection named filtered, which has a key of name and a value of Kevin De Bruyne, and another one of club and Manchester City. Now, like I've said, we could also pass in multiple keys. So let's pass in a comma, let's say club, where it will only show the name of the player. Next to only picking key value pairs, you could use the only method, which will retrieve one or more items from a collection. So what I want to do right here is to find a new variable named filtered, and I want to set it equal to our collection variable and chain the only method to it. It works pretty much in the same exact way, where it takes one argument that is required and all the others are optional, which can also be as many as you want that will represent the key of the items you want to remove from a collection. So let's say age and club again. Once we perform our request, you will see that we have used the only method to get the name and the age item from the collection. Now let's have a look at a couple advantages, disadvantages, and when to use these methods. The contains method is particularly useful when you need to check if an item exists in a collection, without having to loop through the entire collection manually. Now both the accept and only methods are useful when you want to filter a collection based on certain criteria. However, it's worth noting that these methods can be slower than using a for each loop in certain situations. If you work with a very large collection, it may be more efficient to loop through a collection manually rather than using these methods. Unfortunately, these methods do not work on Laravel models or queries, because it can only be used on collections. So we can't simply say, well, article where the user underscore ID is equal to 1, except the excerpt and the description, and finally get me the values. Once we perform our request, you'll see that I have not pulled in my article class. Perform it again, you will see that we get an undefined method because the accept method does not exist. If you want to select specific columns from your query like we have been doing right here, you could simply replace the accept method with the select method. Apparently the user with user ID 1 has not created any post, so let's change it to 10. Where you will see that we have only selected the excerpt and the description of a post. I personally find the map method one of the most powerful, if not the most powerful collection method that Laravel has to offer. It is great for transforming collections of data. It allows you to take an array or collection of data and apply a function or method to each item, returning a new collection with the transformed data. I have created a simple collection right here with a key value pair of name and position. So let's define a new variable right below of it, named mapped, and let's set it equal to the player's collection, and let's chain the map method. The map method accepts a callback function as its argument. So let's pass it in. And the callback function is used to transform the data in the collection. The callback function does accept one argument, which represents each item in the collection that's being transformed. So we're going to use our player's collection, but every single item represents one single player. Now let's see what we can do with one player. So let's return the player and let's add the, let's say, name. Once we perform our request, you'll see that it has returned a new collection where it has only added the name of our 3 players. Now let's see if we can add a new key value pair right here, which will apply for all players. And it's actually very simple. Since one player is equal to the player variable, we can create a new key value pair by using our player, adding a set of brackets, and defining a new key of team. Now let me actually align it a little bit. All right. Now let's set it equal to PSG. And let's then remove the name inside our return statement. Perform our request, where you will see that each element inside our collection has a new key value pair of team, which has a value of PSG. Now let's create one more example, but I want to define a relationship this time. So let's navigate back to PHP Storm. Let's open the article model, and right below my fillable property, I'm going to define a new public function user, because one article belongs to one user, where I'm simply going to return this belongs to, and it belongs to the user class. And let's type int it to a belongs to. Now let's quickly open the user model because we need to define the inverse relationship as well, where we're going to define a public function articles, since one user can have many articles, where we're going to return this has many, and it has many articles. Now let's type int it to a has many. All right. Now let's navigate back to Tinkerwell for a moment. Now let's get rid of our mapped variable. Now let's define a new variable named articles, and let's set it equal to the article model. And we're going to retrieve all rows from the articles table, but we're going to add the data from the user to it. So let's say : with, and then the get method. Inside the with method, we're going to pass in the relationship that we just defined, which is user. Once we perform our request, you will see that we have loaded all the data from the articles table. But if we scroll down to the bottom, right here, you will see that we have also loaded all data from the users table. So let's see how we could map this with only the data that we need. Let's go right after the get method and let's chain the map method. All right, let's align it on the line below. Then inside the map method, we're going to define a callback function where every single article will be set equal to one single article. Then inside our map function, we're going to return an array with the data that we need. So let's say return a set of brackets, where we're going to define a new key of ID, which will be set equal to the article ID. The title will be article title. Let's also add the created underscore at, which will be set equal to article created underscore at. Now let's add the format method to it, where the format will be m/d/Y. Then on the line below, we're going to add user data. So let's say that we want to add a new key of user underscore name, which will be equal to our article, the user method that we have defined, and we want to get the name. Now let's get the email as well. So let's say user underscore email is equal to article user email. Once we perform our request, now let me actually make the sidebar a little bit bigger. You will see that we have retrieved data from the database, but we have mapped it in a way better way. We have only set the ID, title, created underscore at, the username, and the user email inside one single element. But what if you want to transform a collection to an associative array? This is where the mapWithKeys method comes in handy. Let's take the article model that we have as an example again, where we're going to retrieve all articles along with their author's name and email address. To do so, we can use the with method. The with method is used for eager loading the related data. So let's say that we want to eager load the user model, and we can then chain the get method to it, and also the mapWithKeys method. Now let me make it a little bit smaller. Now inside the mapWithKeys function, we're going to pass in a callback function. And inside the callback function, we basically have to say that every single article we're plucking will be equal to one single article. Then inside our callback function, we can simply return an array, where we can then define an associative array, where the key of every item will be our article ID, where we then have an associative array of values inside of it. So inside the array, we could basically say, well, the title is article title. Let's say that we have the created underscore at timestamp, which will be article created underscore at, and then we're going to change the format method to it, because we're going to format it as a m/d/Y. Then on the line below, we're going to map the user underscore name, which will come from our article user name. Now let's do the same thing for the user email. So let's say article user email. So let's summarize what we have done right here. We have used the mapWithKeys method to transform the article collection into an associative array, where the article ID is the key and an array of article information as the value. Quick note, we wrapped the transformed array in square brackets and passed in the return statement as an array right here. This is because the mapWithKeys method expects an associative array as its return value. Then we said that it needs to accept a callback function, which returns the associative array. And one important thing to note is that the key must be unique for each item in the collection, which is true because the ID is unique. Once we perform the request, you'll see that we have received an error message because I made a typo right here. So let's say article format. Once we perform the request, you'll see that in the right panel, we have retrieved an article with a title created at, but we have then added a username and user email. And you'll see that the key of an associative array has been equal to the ID. So 1, 2, 3, and so on. Now we're going to start off with the pluck method, which allows you to retrieve a single column value from a collection of records. And this is very useful when you need to retrieve a list of values from a collection of records. And an example might be our collection of article records. This is very useful when you need to retrieve a list of values from a collection of records. So let's say that you only want to retrieve the title of all articles that you have. Now let's get started. Let's define a new variable named articles, and let's set it equal to our article model, and let's then use the pluck method. Now quick note, the pluck method retrieves the data itself, so you don't need to chain the get method to it as well. So we can get rid of that. Now the pluck method accepts one single argument, which is the name of the column that you want to retrieve from the collection of records. So in our case, let's say the title. Once we perform our request and scroll up, you will see that we have retrieved a collection, but we have only selected the title of all of our records. Personally, I'm a huge fan of using the pluck method because I've run into tons of situations where I don't need to retrieve all articles from a row, but simply just one. By using the pluck method, you will improve your query speed because it only retrieves the data that you need. The next method that I want to cover is the keyBy method. And the keyBy method is used to restructure a collection into an associative array using the values of a specified columns as keys. So let's say that we have a collection, again, of articles, and we want to restructure it so the articles are keyed by their ID. To use the keyBy method, we first need to retrieve our collection. We can do this using the article model, where we can then, just like we did with the pluck method, and quick note, this isn't the best working example because it's not best practice to retrieve all records and then restructure them. But for this example, I need to have a collection that I would map, which is through the article model, where we're going to select all articles. Now that we have our collection, let's use the keyBy method to restructure it. So let's say articles by ID is equal to our articles object, where we're going to chain the keyBy method. We do need to pass in one argument, which is the column or attribute where you want to key it by. So let's say ID. And what this does is creating a new associative array from our collection where the keys are the ID values of each article and the values are the article objects themselves. So once we perform our request, you will see right here that we have a new associative array with the ID of 1 with data inside of it. And our item number 2 is right here, where you will see that the ID is once again number 2, which is equal to the actual ID of the article with all the data inside of it. We could also change the argument of ID to, let's say, title, which would change the associative array keys of the title article. So right here, you'll see that 1 has been replaced with the actual title. The first method that I want to cover is the push method, which is a built-in function in Laravel's collections class. The push method simply allows you to add one or more elements to the end of a collection. And this is useful when you want to append new data to an existing collection without overriding the original data. The power of the push method lies in its flexibility. Because it can accept any type of data, including integers, strings, objects, and even other collections. It's also pretty cool that you don't need to define the push method multiple times in case you want to add or append multiple elements, since it accepts multiple optional arguments, allowing you to append multiple elements to the collection in one go. Now let's say that we want to add 2 new elements to our current collection, a string of Laravel and a new collection containing the integer values of 1, 2, and 3. We can achieve this by using our collection and chaining the push method to it. Then we can basically pass in 2 arguments, where the first one is a string of Laravel, while the second one is an array of value 1, 2, and 3. Once we perform our request, you will see that the push method has appended the elements that we have added to the collection variable. Now next to the push method, Laravel offers the put method, which is also a powerful way to modify collections. The put method allows you to set a value on a collection by a given key. And this is useful when you want to update an existing value or append a new key value pair to the collection. One of the main benefits of the put method is that it automatically handles creating a new key value pair or updating an existing one. This means that you don't have to worry about checking if the key exists or manually updating the value. Now let's use our collection variable again and let's chain the put method to it. Right now we need to define two arguments, a key and a value. So let's say that the key is name and the value is John Doe. Once we perform our request, you will see that the put method added a new key value pair to our collection right at the bottom, where the key is equal to name and the value is equal to John Doe. If the key name already exists, the put method would update the value. So let's say that on the line below, we're going to use our collection again and chain the put method to it. The key will be name again and the value will be John. Once we perform our request, you can see that it has not inserted a new element, but it has updated an element based on the key. Another benefit of the put method is that it's chainable. This means that you can add multiple key value pairs to a collection in one line of code. So right after the first put method, let's chain another put method, where we're going to say that the age is equal to 33. Once we perform our request, you'll see that it has appended a key value pair of age and a value of 33. Now let's talk about a real life scenario where you might use the put method. Let's say that you have a collection of user data and you want to update a specific user information. You could use the put method to update their name, age, or location without having to manually search for data in the collection. Now I do have to mention that there might be a potential disadvantage of the put methods. Or well, I have to mention it so you are aware of it. We have pretty much seen it, but the issue is that it can override existing data if you use the same key multiple times. So be careful when using this method to avoid accidental overriding important data. Now next to the put method, Laravel also offers the give me a moment forget method, which allows you to remove an item from a collection. So let's say that we want to remove the value of developer right here. So what we could do is basically using our collection variable again and chaining the forget method to it. Now quick note, the forget method can only remove an item from a collection by its key. So let's say that we want to delete key number 5. Once we perform our request, you will see that the forget method has removed the element at index 5. One of the main benefits of the forget method is the same as the put method because it allows you to use multiple forget methods. This means that you can remove multiple items from a collection in one line of code. So let's say that we want to forget number 1 and let's add number 0 as well. Once we perform our request, you'll see that we have deleted the first two values. The next method that I want to cover is the pop method. And the pop method is a powerful way to remove the last element from a collection. Now let me repeat myself, the last element. So let's use our collection variable again and let's chain the pop method to it. Unlike other methods, the pop method does not accept any argument because it simply removes the last element from an array. Now once we perform our request, you will see that it has outputted the last value. But if we then go on the line below and output our collection again, you will see that the key value pair of age and 33 has been removed. Now one of the main benefits is pretty much what we have already seen. If we get rid of our collection variable and set our pop method equal to a variable, so let's say removed, perform our request, you'll see that it has basically stored the removed element in a variable which we can then use later on. So Laravel gives you the chance to pretty much recover if you have made a mistake. Now one potential disadvantage of the pop method is that it can only remove the last element from a collection. This means that you can't use it to remove elements in the middle of the collection. The final method that I want to cover is the shift method. And the shift method removes the first element from a collection and returns its value. And this is useful when you want to remove an element from a collection without having to manually search for it. So let's use our variable collection again, where we can chain the shift method to it. Now it simply removes the first value, so we don't need to add an argument right here. And once we perform our request, you can see that the shift method has removed the first element from the collection where the value apparently was an integer of 3. Now, just like the pop method, you could set it equal to a variable, let's say removed, which we can then use later on. The first method that we're going to cover is the concat method, which is used to merge 2 or more collections values into a single collection. And this can be useful when you want to combine data from multiple sources or tables in your database. Now let's have a look at an example. I currently have 2 simple collections on my screen. Collection number 1, which has a value of Barcelona and London, and collection number 2, which has a value of Amsterdam and Berlin. Now honestly, there isn't really a point of having 2 separate collections for this. So what we could do is defining a new variable named combined, where we're going to add collection 2 into collection number 1. So let's define collection number 1, where we can then chain the concat method to it. We do need to pass in one argument of the collection that we want to concat into collection number 1, which will be collection number 2. Once we perform our request, you can see that we have used the concat method to merge the 2 collections into a new collection called combined. The second method that I want to cover is the zip method, which is used to combine 2 or more collections by matching their values based on their index. This can be useful when you want to combine data from different collections that have a one-to-one relationship. Let's change the values of our collections. Let's start off with collection 1 and let's add Barcelona right here. Let's add London and let's also add Amsterdam. Then for collection number 2, we're going to remove the values as well because we're going to add the corresponding countries. So let's say Spain, United Kingdom, and we have Netherlands. Let's then define a new variable right at the bottom named zipped, and let's set it equal to collection number 1, where we're going to chain this zip method to it, and we're going to zip it with collection number 2. Once we perform our request, you can see that the zip method combined the 2 collections by matching their values based on their index. The first value in collection 1 is combined with the first value of collection number 2. The second value in collection number 1 is combined with the second value of collection number 2, and so on. If the 2 collections have different lengths, the resulting collection will have the length of the shorter collection. So let's remove, let's say, the Netherlands from our last collection. Once we perform our request, you see that collection number 1 is alright, number 2 as well, and number 3 has a quantity of null. We're going to start off with the collapse method, which is a method that allows you to collapse a multi-dimensional collection into a single dimension. This can be useful when you're working on a complex data structure and you want to simplify things out. I currently have a simple collection on my screen with ordered items, and each order has multiple line items. Now let's say that we only need to get a list of all the items in the orders, and we don't want the other crap data that we have inside our collection. So let's say that we don't want the IDs. In situations like these, we could use the, let me scroll to the bottom, collapse method. Let's define a new variable named items, and let's set it equal to the orders collection, where we can then chain the pluck method to it to extract the items array from each order. So let's pass in an argument of items, which will basically grab this part of the multidimensional array, and let's then chain the collapse method to it, which will merge all those arrays into a single collection of items. In the output, you will see that the collapse method returned a new collection that is a single dimensional collection where all the items from the original multi-dimension collection have been merged together. The second method that I want to cover is useful when you want to split a collection into chunks of smaller collections, which can be done through the split method. And this can be useful when you're dealing with large collections of data and you want to break them down in more manageable chunks. Let's dive into our example. Let's say that you have a collection of blog posts that you want to display on your website. However, you don't want to display all those posts at once because that can be overwhelming for your users. Instead, you want to display them in smaller chunks, such as 5 posts per page. To achieve this, we can use the split method. But before we do that, let's get rid of our orders array. Let's define a new variable named post, and let's set it equal to the collect method. Let's then pass in an array, another array where the title is equal to post 1, where the body is equal to, let's say, test. So what I want to do right now is basically duplicating the array that we have inside our collection 10 times. Give me a moment. All right. And I want to rename the titles to post 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and I missed one. So let's make 10 as well. All right. Then outside of our collection, we're going to define a new variable named chunks, which we're going to set equal to our post collection. And then we're going to chain the split method to it. The split method accepts a single parameter. This parameter can be either an integer or a callback function that returns a Boolean value. If an integer is passed, the collection will be split into chunks of that size. If a callback function is being passed in, the collection will be split whenever the function returns true. In the current scenario, let's pass in 5. Let's quickly comment out the collapse method that we have defined before. And once we perform our request, you will see that the split method has returned a new collection of collections where it has grouped them in groups of 2. So we have collection number 1, which basically has post number 1 and 2. Then we have another collection for post 3 and 4, another collection for 5 and 6, another one for 7 and 8, and the last one for post 9 and 10. So from 10 rows, it has created 5 collections where each collection has a total of 2 posts. I'm going to cover 2 pretty interesting methods that are useful for sorting collections by values, which is the sort and sortDesc methods. I personally find the sort method one of the most useful methods in Laravel Collections class. It basically does what the name implies. It allows you to sort the collection by its values. By default, it sorts the values in ascending order. Let's see how this works. I currently have a simple collection on my screen with integer values in random order. Let's define a new variable named sorted, and let's set it equal to our collection variable, and let's then chain the sort method to it. Once we perform our request, you will see that it has sorted out our collection. Now this method is useful when you need to order the data in your application based on a certain criteria. One example might be when you want to sort a list of products by their price or a list of posts by their publication date. The second method that I want to cover is the sortByDesc method, which is very similar to the sort method, but with one key difference. It sorts the collection by its value, but in descending order instead of ascending order. It works in our current example as well, where we simply need to define a new variable named sortByDesc, and let's set it equal to our collection, and let's chain the sortDesc method to it. Once we perform our request, you'll basically see that the first value is the highest number, while the last value is the lowest number. Where we're going to cover a couple pretty interesting methods that are useful for sorting collections based on their keys, which are the sortBy, sortByDesc, sortKeys, and sortKeysDesc methods. Well, let's start off with the sortBy method, which is a great way to sort a collection by a given key. Imagine that we have a collection of users, with each user containing a name at age. Now let's say that we want to sort it based on the age. What we can do is basically defining a new variable named sorted, setting it equal to our collection variable, and chaining the sortBy method to it. The sortBy method accepts one argument, which is the key where you want to sort it by, which in our case will be age. Once we perform our request, you will see that the collection has been sorted by the age key in ascending order. Now, when will this be useful? Well, anytime you need to sort a collection by a specific key, this method comes in handy. It is also great for sorting collections by nested values. The second method that I want to cover is sortByDesc, which sorts a collection in descending order based on a given key. It is the opposite of the sortBy method, which sorts the collection in ascending order. So let's define a new variable named sorted. Let's set it equal to our collection variable. Let's chain the sortByDesc method, and let's pass in an argument of age. I have a typo right here. Let me get rid of that. All right. Once we perform our request, you will see that our collection has been ordered in descending order based on the age. The third method that I want to cover is the, let me scroll down for a moment, sortKeys method. As the name implies, the sortKeys method allows you to sort a collection based on its keys. This can be particularly useful when you want to sort a collection based on the order in which the data has been added. So let's define a new variable named sorted. Let's set it equal to our collection, and let's chain the sortKeys method. In our current example, we're going to sort the collection based on the keys of the element in the collection. As a result, the sorted variable contains the same user data, but sorted by the keys in ascending order. This method can be particularly useful when you want to sort a collection based on the order which the data has been added. Just like the sortBy method, we also have a sortKeysDesc method, which allows you to sort a collection based on its keys. However, there's once again one difference, because it will be sorted in descending order. So if we define a variable named sorted and set it equal to our collection variable and chain the sortKeysDesc method, you will see that this collection has been sorted in descending order. Quick summary, the sortBy method is used to sort a collection by a specific key in ascending order, while sortByDesc sorts the collection in descending order. Both the sortKeys and sortKeysDesc are used to sort a collection by its key in ascending or descending order. If you do like my content and you want to see more, leave this video a thumbs up, and if you're new to the channel, please hit the subscribe button.